Tonight's lead, President Obama tells Republicans to drop the excuses. It's now been over 1 year since the Senate passed a sweeping immigration bill to secure the borders and create a pathway to citizenship. It's a major part of the president's agenda. But in typical fashion, Speaker Boehner and the House GOP have done nothing about it. Today, President Obama said he's acting on his own. In a powerful and very tough speech at the White House, he went right after Speaker Boehner's leadership.
They've proven again and again that they're unwilling to stand up to the Tea Party in order to do what's best for the country. And the worst part about it is a bunch of them know better. The failure of House Republicans to pass a darn bill is bad for our security, it's bad for our economy, and it's bad for our future. The only thing I can't do is stand by and do nothing while waiting for them to get their act together. If House Republicans are really concerned about me taking too many executive actions, the best solution to that is passing bills. Pass a bill. Solve a problem. Don't just say no. So, while I will continue to push House Republicans to drop the excuses and act, and I hope their constituents will too, America cannot wait forever for them to act. And that's why today I'm beginning a new effort to fix as much of our immigration system as I can on my own, without Congress.
Today, the president announced he's moving immigration enforcement's assets to the border, and he's tasking top officials to bring him recommendations for more executive actions. It's not a sweeping overhaul, but it's a start. He blasted the GOP for blaming their inaction on rapidly unfolding humanitarian crisis on the border, where tens of thousands of unaccompanied children have massed.
Some in the House Republican caucus are using the situation with unaccompanied children as their newest excuse to do nothing. And I want everybody to think about that. Their argument seems to be that because the system's broken, we shouldn't make an effort to fix it. It makes no sense. It's not on the level. Understand, by the way, for the most part, this is not a situation where these children are slipping through. They're being apprehended. But the problem is that our system is so broken, so unclear, that folks don't know what the rules are.
And the president spoke passionately about hosting military families at the upcoming White House July 4th barbecue, and made a striking and poetic case for change.
Some of the service members coming this year are unique because they signed up to serve, to sacrifice, potentially to give their lives for the security of this country, even though they weren't yet Americans. That's how much they love this country. They were prepared to fight and die for an America they did not yet fully belong to. I think they've earned their stripes in more ways than one. And that's why on Friday morning we're going to naturalize them in a ceremony right here at the White House. This Independence Day will be their first day as American citizens. One of the things we celebrate on Friday, one of the things that makes this country great, is that we are a nation of immigrants. Our people come from every corner of the globe. That's what makes us special. That's what makes us unique. And throughout our history, we've come here in wave after wave from everywhere, understanding that there was something about this place where the whole was greater than the sum of its parts, that all the different cultures and ideas and energy would come together and create something new. We won this country's freedom together. We built this country together. We defended this country together. It makes us special. It makes us strong. It makes us Americans.
It's a vision of an inclusive America, a nation of immigrants. But apparently, Speaker Boehner has a different vision. Today, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid said Boehner's failure of leadership is enormous. Yes, it is enormous. But the president sent a strong message today. He won't sit back. He's ready to take action on his own. Joining me now are Victoria DeFrancesco, Soto, and Krystal Ball. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us, Rev.
Thanks, Rev.
Victoria, let me go to you first. Immigration is the remaining piece to President Obama's agenda, and he was very tough on Boehner and the GOP today. Was there anything that particularly struck you about his tone?
One word, Reverend: frustration. And it was this incredible frustration at the stalemate. He has not just been trying to get immigration reform passed in this last year. He's been trying to get it passed for the past 5 to 6 years. It's been over 30 years since any substantial immigration reform has taken place in this country. We are long overdue. But the other piece of the frustration has to do with the Republican Party, because a big chunk of the Republican Party wants to get immigration reform through. It's just this one small part of the party that won't budge. You have the Bibles, Badges, and Business Coalition that says we have a broken system and something needs to be done. The majority of the American public wants something done. So you have all of these voices calling for something to be done, and this recalcitrant minority just thumbing their nose at what the public wants.
You know, Krystal, Victoria mentioned frustration. The president's taken action today. He's had to take action in the past around federal employees, minimum wage, gay rights. What can he do here? He's taking action, but what really can he do with such a dysfunctional Congress?
Well, he's going to do, I think, what he can, and he has broad latitude in terms of how he enforces the immigration rules and who he deports and who he doesn't. As we've already seen, he's used some of that leeway that he has to keep children who were born in this country, to make them legal citizens and allow them to stay here. So that's already one piece that he's done, and he's asked Secretary Jay Johnson to look into what else could be done on this front. One thing that's interesting, and Vicky points out, the timing here and the frustration, is the president has been getting beaten up by both sides. He's been beaten up by immigration reform activists who called him the deporter-in-chief, and he's been beaten up certainly by the Republicans, and he's gone back to the well again and again with John Boehner, trying to get him to do something, trying to give him time, saying, okay, if you need to get through August, fine. If you need to get through the primaries, fine. And finally, after Eric Cantor's stunning primary defeat in Virginia, it seems like he finally said, okay, there's no way these Republicans are going to do anything. I got to do whatever I can on my own.
You know, Victoria, Speaker Boehner, he put out a statement today. He says the American people and their elected officials don't trust him to enforce the law as written. Until that changes, it's going to be difficult to make progress on this issue. Now, that's really absurd, if I have to say so. It's an excuse not to take action on anything at all. I mean, whether it's immigration reform or anything else.
You know, I think of the Congress a lot like I think of some of the students in my class. Most of my students are great, but then you have those slackers that don't do anything, and that's how I view the Congress. They're not doing anything, and then they get angry when the professor, when the executive wants to do something. And with regards to immigration in particular, it's especially galling because the president has been tough on immigration. As Krystal pointed out, many immigrant advocates call him the deporter-in-chief. He said, okay, I'm going to uphold the law, and then this way we can come together and pass comprehensive immigration reform. The president has held up his end of the bargain. Congress has been missing in action.
But, you know, Krystal, I want to stay on this Congress for a minute, because the president, he called on Congress to take action on a range of issues, saying he'd rather sign bills into law than take executive action. Listen to what he said.
That's true about immigration. That's true about the minimum wage. It's true about equal pay. There are a whole bunch of things where I would greatly prefer Congress actually do something. I take executive action only when we have a serious problem, a serious issue, and Congress chooses to do nothing.
I mean, isn't the historic dysfunction of this Congress the real issue here?
It absolutely is the real issue, and the president also pointed out in the speech that John Boehner could bring immigration reform to the House floor today, and it would pass with a coalition of Democrats and Republicans. There's nothing standing in the way of progress here except John Boehner, his cowardice to stand up to his caucus, and an incalcitrant part of the Republican Party that has blocked progress on a range of issues. So yes, on immigration reform, on minimum wage, on unemployment insurance, all of these issues, the obstructionist Congress is the bottom line.
Victoria, DeFrancesco, Soto, and Krystal, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thanks, Rob.
And
Thanks, Rob.
be sure to watch Krystal on The Cycle weekdays at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on MSNBC.